And in my generation, the baby boom generation, 25% of us will have Alzheimer's disease. Why we lose our brain, 25% of us, that's millions of people worldwide, is because of what we're talking about now. Diseases that didn't exist a few years ago now are killers that are phenomenally prominent disorders. When we have the future generations looking like they're going to be 2 to 4 times, listen closely, 2 to 4 times sicker than us, what are we going to do? We can't print enough funny money to keep that going. We can't make believe that we can sustain disease and death, because if you don't have people who can work and people who can function. Just yesterday I had a conversation with my management at Hippocrates. They said more and more people want scooters. So yesterday, driving here to the Real Truth About Health, I put a directive out. I said, Anna Maria or I have to sign the paper if a person has a scooter. I said, do you realize that these people are so used to and expecting that a scooter is at the grocery store and at the Walmart that they don't want to get their fat asses up to walk, that they want to get on scooters. So they think Hippocrates is like Walmart, I guess. And I said, now it has to be one of us that have to shake these people down to see if they really need a scooter because they just broke their leg, or if they broke their brain by eating bacon. Now, I try to add some levity and humor into what I say, but this is a formidable issue that we're speaking about today. We're speaking about human life and the future of humanity. So yes, this is about how bad fish and chicken and red meat are and eggs are. Eggs are unbelievably bad. In my book, Dairy Deception, they call it the real food. It's a real food for dying people. That's the subtitle you didn't see. The real food for dying people. They've done a study where 950,000 eggs were looked at in dozens of countries worldwide. Listen closely, including organic, biological, ecological eggs. Little less than 1 million eggs looked at, of which 38% were biological, organic, or ecological eggs, all the same thing. 90% had a deadly bacteria on it. 90% of eggs had a deadly bacteria. So let's start with that. Do you have to even eat it? No. You just have to touch it. Most of the transmission of the bacteria is from touching the egg. So even if you're a vegan, don't color eggs at Easter because you're going to end up with the bacteria. Then when you open the egg, one egg has 230 grams of cholesterol. How much cholesterol do you need to eat? None. Your own healthy body produces cholesterol. Now, is cholesterol important? You bet. If your body didn't produce healthy cholesterol, you wouldn't understand a word I'm saying now, because it's incredibly important for the brain and the energy of the cell. But you don't need to eat it to get it. Your animal body will basically create cholesterol, providing you don't eat like I used to, high sugar, that whacks it out, saturated animal fat, whacks it out, healthy plant-based. We don't find people with cholesterol problems on a plant-based diet. I've worked with 265,000 people. About 70% of them I've looked at blood profiles on, and probably about 20% of them long-term, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. We don't have problems with cholesterol on plant-based diets. Who has problems with cholesterol? Are people who eat animals, people who eat sugar, people who drink wine. I know people who are eating healthy, exercising, great. I always see high cholesterol. You drinking wine? Oh yes, but it's organic. Sugar. How about those potato chips? Don't worry, it's organic. You hear what I'm telling you? There's no shortcut to well-being. There's only well-being and the lack of. You follow me? There's either you're well or you're not well. There's no shortcut to get there. And what I'm going to say to you in the last few minutes is that not one of you in this room doesn't have the inner wisdom, the spiritual increment, and the fortitude to make these changes. But the one thing I learned over a long period of time working with people is that you've got to start to like yourself enough to do it. If you're strong and like yourself, it doesn't matter how many people make fun of you. Doesn't matter how much you hate the taste of food as I did. I hated the taste of this food. I didn't think it was food, and the truth was what I ate wasn't food. But when you kill and deaden your senses, including your taste buds, it's not used to flavor, nuance, and texture. It's used to gray matter, I guess. The only thing I can call it, gray matter. My children would say, one by one as they were growing up, and most of them now have children of their own, those people are eating brown food over there, Dad. The one thing they identified, they'd always look at our plates, and they were colorful. They had several colors on the plates, and vibrant and tasty and flavorful, and to the point where none of my kids ever used dressing on the food because they never were toxic or polluted, as I was at one point. So their little taste buds were constantly up there banging away, saying, wow, give me some more of that red pepper, give me some more of that sprout, give me some more of that. And they'd see those other people, and every time they noticed our relatives or when we walk into a place where a community was, they'd say, they're eating brown food because it all looks what? Gray. No color, death and dying. And so how could you expect one of the old anages, it's so absolutely correct, it's one of the most powerful scientific anages ever made, and they always categorically put this into philosophy. It's not philosophy. Life begets life. This is not a spiritualistic philosophy. Life begets life. One of the things I do, I'm offered opportunities to go out and speak to doctors and scientists, and I always have to lower the bar because they're the most conditioned people, so you know that. So you would think these are the most highly educated people, most acutely interested in what I have to say. They're the ones I have to lower the bar. We go from this level of speaking as we are today to a much lower level because I know their threat level is very high, that they're always ready to go against because, again, when you're part of the death and dying and deception area, you must feel really guilty. If you're practicing medicine and you keep practicing and you never get anywhere, it must be a pretty bad place to be. When you're part of the food industry that basically is deceptive, you must feel bad. And one of the things I always explain to them in a very simple way is if I take a seed and I put it into the ground and I let that seed have water and sun, it grows. Now we all know that. Life begets life. But how about if I took that seed and cooked it and put it into the ground? I would sit for the rest of my life and that would never grow. Why then would you think it would be any different if you cooked the food you were eating? I propose one of you trying to challenge that conversation. I know that non-scientists who call themselves highly educated and credentialed scientists will tell you that the human brain evolved when we started to eat cooked food. Well, if you put a seed in the ground and it doesn't grow, how does a brain grow? By putting something dead into your body. Again, this shows you the nonsensical science that you and I think is God, the rule. It's nonsense. Most of this is completely fabricated nonsense that comes from nowhereness. And so, the life part of this food is a very powerful conversation we should have. My new book that will be out next year, Quantum Human Biology, a big part of that is about it. Dr. Konovich in Russia, a physicist, I asked him to do some work on doing electromagnetic frequency testing of the food and what happens when you cook the food and what happens when you eat the food raw. And he was delighted and elated. He came back, he said, I stopped taking pictures of the cooked food. There was nothing interesting and nothing to see. And he did a series of photographs to me. First time I was ever involved with that was 1975. My good friend who's now deceased, Dr. Rick Ricketts. You may see these pictures or one of these pictures in my book from 20 years ago called Living Food for Optimum Health. And Dr. Ricketts and I commissioned a Russian scientist who was then in residency at UCLA to do photographs on our sprouts. And we found a 2-foot energy field around one sprout. And then we photographed meat, and it sucked energy in when it was not cooked, 1/4 of an inch, and when it was cooked, almost a 1/2 an inch. No energy protruded from it. These are really what I consider to be the future health books. They should be like children's books. We don't have to write all these highly intellectual, scientifically validated things like I have to do today to convince you that what I'm telling you is not nonsense. That's what I have to waste a lot of my time doing research to prove common sense now, which is a little bizarre to me, but I understand that's where we are. The bar is low in this one. The new health book will be a picture of a food that's raw. Next page, a picture of food that's dead. Next page, a picture of a plant food dead. Next page, a picture of a animal food dead. And then you make a choice. It will be a 6-page book. It will be called You Choose, the new health book. You choose. 6 pages, not a word is there, just photographs. Now, I know this is oversimplified for most of you because you're still wondering and wandering and bitching and I don't know and I'm not sure and you're a little confused and comme ci, comme ça, amends. But the truth of the matter, it is that simple, people. You would never take a cooked seed and put it in the ground and expect your garden to grow. How the heck do you expect your health to grow? So is it good enough just to be a plant-based eater? No. But do I first want you to be a plant-based eater? Yes. Even if it takes you to eat plant-based meat substitutes, do it. I had to do this at first. You think I just became a raw fooder? Again, I tell you, I hated the taste of all of this. I didn't dislike it, I hated it. I campaigned against it. I would have cursing discussions with broccoli. Now I revere it. Sometimes I thought the broccoli was talking back. I was hallucinating because I didn't have sugar. I get it. And if you have to tiptoe to do this, fine. But give yourself a defined period. In 6 months or in a year. Those of you that are in this room and listening to me worldwide that are sick, get your running shoes on. Jump into the cold water. I remember when I lived in the north, I just couldn't wait for summer. I just couldn't wait. And you know, May came around and you'd have that first warm day. It wasn't ever really that warm, but it was 60 degrees, 65. And I just couldn't wait to jump into the water. And I knew it was going to be shocking. But every year I seemed to do it. If you're sick, you got to jump into the water. You're going to learn to swim. And to the human race, if you want to once again, for the first time, appreciate God and the gift we were given called human life in this very extraordinary planet, this garden that we've been given, well, be respectful through action, not through talk. Talk is cheap. Don't tell me you know what you should do, but you just can't do it. Do what you should do until you do it right. You get it? Do what you should do. You think I was always right? Do you think I'm perfectly right now? Do you think next year when you come here I'm going to teach you things I didn't know now? Of course. We're all in the process to going back to where we came from. Do you realize when you came here there was nothing you didn't know? And then they started to work on you and condition you? This is what you don't know. You're too short. You can't know that. You're too tall. You're too small. You're too poor. You're too rich. They started to work on you. When you were a little baby, the little baby would have been sitting here and say, absolutely, absolutely. You're saying, oh my God, this is overwhelming. You mean I just wanted to come here and learn what supplement to take. Read my book, Supplements Exposed. We are challenging you to challenge yourself. The program I want you to be on is I Like Myself program. Can we agree to that? I Like Myself program. Now, that was a program, when I turned that on, I was so uncomfortable with that channel, I never believed it. And I know the first year I kept struggling with it, and I would like run into the closet and eat sugar, and then come out and tell everyone, I'm pure. I'd say, what's that on your mouth? Oh, I must have kissed somebody. You get what I'm saying? I was cheating. Who? Myself. Because I didn't honor myself. Do you follow that? So the first step is honor. And my friend came to me, much older person, and said to me, make believe you like yourself. Eventually you're going to like it. And I did. I started to say, well, I like me. And before you know it, it felt better to like me than to not like me. And it felt better not to eat the sugar than to eat the sugar. Do you follow me? Because when you do the right thing, it just has an inherent way to say, hey, you're doing the right thing. You all know that rhythm. You're struggling. It's like you're climbing the Alps, and then somehow you get on that path. And that's when you find your purpose and passion. That's what we're talking about here. So the ultimate last conversation I'm going to have with you is your purpose and passion has to be fueled through ethical choices. You're not here to just choose food. Let's eat, let's poop. Let's eat and poop. That's not what we're talking about. That's a very boring life, by the way. That's not what this real conversation is about. Let's just get to the food thing, get the food thing out of the way so we can fuel a purposeful life. That's what this conversation's really about. Because one thing I know, when you get down to that path, that things become pretty easy for you. It's because you're living in a passionate way at that point. A purposeful way at this point. And so those of you that struggle and always find something wrong with everything you do and always feel that you fail deep down, it's because you haven't really liberated yourself to find the passion. Somewhere along the way, somebody broke you, and you allowed yourself to be broken. You went along with the program. Well, I know life's a struggle, it's hard, it's okay I'm struggling, it's okay I'm getting old. You ever notice how many of you have gone to a doctor, you had a little problem, and the doctor said, oh, you're getting old, that's just part of getting old. I mean, you should ask for your money back if that's what the doctor says. I'll never forget, years ago they invited me to this expedition. We went down to Peru into this little village where people commonly lived above 100 years old. And it was like stunning to me. They're running around, they're happy, they're pushing each other, they're like teenagers and they're 80, 90, 100 years old. And the joy, I didn't understand a word they said, but boy, I could feel the passion in that village, the support, the love, the honor and respect in that village like I've never felt anywhere on the planet Earth. And I grew up in a very loving and respectful family. And I've never felt that level of liberation that I felt in that village. And I remember when I came out of that village, I was talking to one of my colleagues who was a physician, and he said, what was the thing that you took away from there the most? I said, I took away that I still had a long way to go. I still have a long way to go. You still have a long way to go, but we can keep going. We can keep going. You know, at one point it was a burden to climb the mountain. Now it's fun to climb the mountain. Do you follow me? One time it was a burden to eat something I didn't like the taste of. Now it's a challenge to only eat the things that are tasteful. Do you follow that? Be tasteful in your choices because you think you deserve it. Be honorable to yourself so that you are having the ripple effect come out. If you honor yourself, you honor those around you, the environment, the planet that we live on. If you truly believe that you have faith, practice faith. Don't tell me what you know, show me what you can do. I'm so tired of listening to people tell me how religious they are, and they have not one speck of spiritual increment in them. The practice of spirituality is what's interesting, not knowing the rules and not achieving the rules. Do you follow me? Part of the rules are what we're talking about now, people. And don't be encapsulated into somebody else's dream. Create your own dream. Remember that. It's your own dream. You got to create your own world. I'll never forget my father and my grandfather kept saying, whatever you do, find something you can make money with. Their whole world was, because the greed mongers that basically we talked about before that are like this control them so much. So they reduced everyone. They reduced the population's consciousness to a small area. Because the people that seemed like they were doing well and having fun, it was all because they had stuff. They had money. So even my loving dad and grandfather, as a man, they kept saying to me, you gotta find something that you'll have security with. My grandfather said to me, he showed me this, he said, I worked 50 years. He said, they gave me a watch. 50 years of work. His generation, they worked 6 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day. He started to work on railways when he was 12 years old, putting rail tracks down, and that's what they gave him. And I started to look at them, and I loved them so much, and they loved me so much, and I started to say, is that all there is? And the answer was no. There's a lot more than that. You should not only be thriving, you should be flourishing. You should not only be purposeful for your own existence, but purposeful as a human being. You should not only be a solo act and alone and isolated, you should be part of the institution of change. And you don't have to stand up on stages and talk and write books and get on television and yell. Be an example in your family, in your community. You are part of a human race. And this human race is extraordinary. And I'm sure we're not at the end of the human race, and I'm sure you'll hear a lot of things and read a lot of things that will tell you how bad it is. I'm here to tell you how good it is and how quick we can change. Because I've seen it every day in my life since I was a boy in my early 20s. I see people dying on a daily basis, dying, with 10 doctors, experts telling them they're going to die, heal themselves. Now, if you can heal yourself of a catastrophic disease, how can we not heal the planet Earth? How can we not heal the future of humanity? How can we not do extraordinary things when we're extraordinary people? But if you keep yourself under the thumb of self-imposed thumbness, that's where you're going to be. You can't squirm out of your own ignorance. You've got to get knowledge to come out of the darkness. Remember that. You can't lie your way to truth. You've got to truth your way to truth. And it's not easy. I'm not telling you it's easy to, as I had to, look in the mirror and say, I'm full of crap. That pretty much everything I thought was important may not be so important. And my priorities and your priorities have to change. Do you deserve to have goodness or not? Let's hope you know yes. I deserve to have goodness. But who is going to give you the goodness? God? Don't sit around like little worms and wait for God to do something for you. He gave you a free will. You have a free will, man. Don't blame God. You're a snake, wait for God to do something. You're a human being. Impose the free will in a positive way rather than a self-destructive way. Don't say there's always been sickness, so there has to be sickness. Let's go back to the book that 95% of you read. They talked about perpetual life. You remember that part? Oh, yeah, but that's utopia. It doesn't really work. We screwed up and there was no more perpetual life. Do you follow me? Who created the rules? Insecure men. Very few women were involved in this. Insecure men created most of the rules that you self-impose on yourself, by the way. And people who are conscious do not need rules because they live with ethics. There's a big difference. Do you follow me? You don't need to come to conferences like this when you live an ethical life because you already get this stuff. Inherently, naturally, and instinctually, you get what I'm talking about. This is just the copacetic way that we're supposed to all reside on this planet Earth. But you can get there, but it's not going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of letting go. That's really what it's about. You almost pretty much have to let go of everything that you ever thought was normal. And some of it was sort of okay, and you're going to bring that back, but you've got to be willing to let the entire cargo ship sink. That's it. Sink the damn cargo ship, and whatever floats to the top, look at it and see if you're interested in taking it back onto your next ship. Do you get that? Get that image and get that picture? Because some of your life, I'm not saying it was completely disaster, it was probably good. Because most of us at our core are good people, loving people, compassionate people, empathetic people, who are just not good to ourselves. And you women, listen closer. Because you are the ones that are the biggest self-imposers of the species. We men get away with a lot. Because you're our mothers, you're our caretakers. But you women, you will put yourself second and third and fourth and fifth depending upon how many members of your family you have. And I'm working with women every single day of my life, and let me tell you, this is the century, the 21st century, that we need to honor, raise, and respect women for us to survive. It's still 7 out of 10 people that come to us are women, because women are more conscious inherently. You're maternal, instinctual, you get it more. And yes, we've given you a lot of meat and a lot of dope, and we've deadened your brain and your heart and your soul, but not as much as men. Not as much as men. So clearly, I hope that every one of you sitting in this room understand what I was here to say today and why I said what I did today. Those of you listening, I hope through the airwaves and through the future, and maybe 100 years from now you'll be listening to this, you'll get what I say. But if we don't get what I'm saying today, you're going to suffer. You're going to suffer. And it's not a threat, it's a reality. God bless each and every one of you. Thanks for being here with me.